He hit like truck, you know, like nobody hit me harder than Justin Gaethje.
It's a coin toss, but if I was betting, I would bet Max.
100% confident. It doesn't matter how hard you hit him, he's going to be fine.
I think Saryukian's a big enough name now.
Doing as sneakily as he can hit. And he's hitting that same spot again and again.
Jamal Hill's cool, bro. He just like fights.
Magnum Zhang and Yan 9 show no.
Nickal going against Cody Brundage.
After all this wait and excitement, we're finally 1 week away from the most anticipated UFC event in the past couple years. 2 championship fights, a BMF title fight, every fight has a ranked opponent. This card is stacked from head to toe. Every one of these fights can be a main event on a UFC card, as said from the boss man himself.
So every fight that's on the card already could be a main event on either a fight night or a pay-per-view.
This has been the most hyped UFC card that I've ever seen, and here in this video, I'll give an in-depth analysis of the fights on the main card and predictions on every fight that's taking place this Saturday in Las Vegas. Opening the main card, we got one of the best prospects in the UFC right now in Bo Nickal, going against another touted prospect in Cody Brundage. Bo Nickal came out of the Contender Series as a 3-time Division I wrestling champ who's been dominant in his tenure in MMA. He had one professional MMA fight before the UFC and won by knockout in 33 seconds. That's when Dana White brought him to the UFC and kept the same dominance. Nickal is 5-0, all 5 wins by first round finishes. Even though he has a wrestling background, Bo's put his striking on display, using wrestling feints to land clean shots. But he's going against another fighter with a wrestling background that can strike very well. Cody Brundage is a very strong fighter that's coming off 2 wins, including a slam knockout. Most of his fights end before the final bell rings, so this fight is going to be exciting as soon as it starts. But there's a reason why Bo Nickal is such a big favorite in this fight. I got Bo Nickal by submission. Now we come to a number 1 contender fight for the lightweight title, and that's Charles Oliveira going against Arman Tsarukyan. Oliveira is the former lightweight champion that was on a tear before being met by the best fighter on the planet, Islam Makhachev. Charles Oliveira always brings the fight, finishing 31 of his 34 wins. Early in his career, he was known as the gatekeeper and solely a jiu-jitsu guy, with his striking lacking compared to now. But now we got this evolved Charles Oliveira, who puts the pressure on fighters as soon as the bell rings and dominates everyone he sees in the cage. The former champ likes to fight based on what his opponent is best at. Let's take a look at his past wins. Against experienced strikers like Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, Oliveira is looking to work his ground game and get the submission. Meanwhile, against a guy like Beneil Dariush, who excels on the ground, Oliveira is going to knock him out. Now we go to the guy who's having the biggest fight of his career, and that's Arman Tsarukyan. Coming off a career win, knocking out Beneil Dariush in the first round, Tsarukyan looks to finally get the title shot he's been looking for since he came into the UFC. In his first UFC fight, he went against the current pound-for-pound king in Islam Makhachev, which didn't look great for Tsarukyan coming in. But now at a young 27 years of age, Arman has finally got some experience under his belt and is ready to break through. Arman is a very well put together martial artist, knowing how to mix it up in certain fights. In his last fight against Dariush, Tsarukyan put the pressure on as soon as the bell rung. He can wrestle very well, strike very well, and I'm excited to see this fight. As for how this fight plays out, I think both of these fighters are going to put it on each other as soon as the fight starts. And even though Arman is the betting favorite, I don't see any lightweight beating Charles Oliveira other than Islam Makhachev, so I got Oliveira by submission. In what was supposed to be a one-time thing, the BMF title is now a commodity amongst UFC fighters. After coming from George Masvidal versus Nate Diaz, we got the current BMF Justin Gaethje going against one of the best fighters to ever fight in Max Holloway. Starting with Justin Gaethje, there's a reason why this guy is holding the BMF title. He never has a boring fight. Poirier, Oliveira, Chandler, the list goes on. And not only does he keep the fight exciting, he also wins. Knocking out Dustin Poirier in his last fight, Justin is always marching forward and doesn't like to go to the ground, even despite his wrestling background. But he might have to use some wrestling because he's going against Max Holloway, the guy with arguably the best chin in combat history. Max Holloway has been one of the greatest featherweights and was on pace to go down as the greatest featherweight if Alex Volkanovski didn't exist. But now he's moving up to 155 to prove he's the baddest man on the planet. Or as Holloway would say it,
I'm coming for the baddest man on the planet, DC.
Holloway has claimed to be the best boxer in the UFC, and this fight could make a pretty strong case for that if he can pull off the upset. For how this fight plays out, I think it's a complete mismatch. I think Justin Gaethje whoops Max Holloway for 5 straight rounds and wins this fight by decision. Putting China on the map, we got 2 of the best women fighters on the planet fighting for the UFC strawweight title. It's fan favorite Zhang Weili going against Yan Xiaonan. Starting with the champ of this division, Zhang Weili has been absolutely incredible, never being involved in a boring fight. Her career was taken to the next level in her first fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where they put on arguably the greatest fight of all time. Losing to Thug Rose after that, Zhang has went back to where she was a couple years ago, just dominating opponents with relentless pressure. She proved that in her last fight, landing almost 300 strikes against Amanda Lemus. But now, after carrying the strawweight division on her back these past couple years, she's going against fellow countrywoman Yan Xiaonan. Pulling off the upset against Jessica Andrade by knocking her out in the first round, Xiaonan fights with relentless pressure. She has a striking heavy approach, and she is ready to stand and bang with the best in her division. For how this fight plays out, Zhang Weili is going to prove why she is atop the women pound for pound rankings for a reason. She's one of the most favorite fighters to watch, so stay tuned for this co-main event. Last but definitely not least, we got the main event between the light heavyweight champ Alex Pereira against former light heavyweight champ Jamal Hill. Alex Pereira came into the UFC as a star after his history with Israel Adesanya at Glory Kickboxing, beating him twice including a knockout. Now after 11 MMA fights, Pereira has already held UFC championships in 2 different weight classes and made a superstar out of himself. As you can see from his kickboxing background, you know exactly how Pereira likes to fight, purely striking with deadly hooks and kicks. His bread and butter is his calf kicks and left hook. Both are unstoppable. His low kicks are very good because he doesn't telepath any of his kicks. He turns his hip at the last moment, and by the time his opponent reads it, their leg is getting destroyed. And with his left hook, is a death touch to fighters, using it to knock out Yuri Prochazka and Adesanya to win his belts. Now we come to the former light heavyweight champ in Jamal Hill. Hill took advantage of a late notice championship fight against Glover Teixeira and absolutely dominated, proving he should be labeled as one of the top light heavyweights in the division. Winning his last 4 fights, including 3 by knockout, Jamal Hill is a scary guy to go against since his defense is just as well as his offense, doing a good job picking his shots throughout the fight. For how this fight plays out, it stays on the feet the whole time, and to be honest, I don't see anyone keeping up with Pereira on the feet outside of Adesanya. I'm not a huge fan of Hill anyway, and for those reasons, I got Pereira by knockout. I got through all the fights in the main card, but as I said in the intro, every fight happening this Saturday could be a main event. So instead of only talking about the main card, I'll give you guys quick analysis and predictions on the prelims as well. Starting the night off, Cody Garbrandt and Davison Figueiredo finishes with Figueiredo by decision, just because his grappling would be too much. Bobby Green against Jim Miller, I got Jim Miller by decision. Jessica Andrade against Marina Rodriguez, I got Andrade by knockout. Jalen Turner against Renato Moicano, I got Moicano by submission, and then he says some crazy stuff on the mic to Joe Rogan.
Man, you the smartest person on the earth, bro. I watch your podcast every day. Joe Rogan, training a day, Joe Rogan.
Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez, I got Lopez by decision. Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison, I got Kayla Harrison in her UFC debut, even though I have zero hope she makes 135, after fighting at 155 her whole career. Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling, I got Sterling by submission in his 145-pound debut. And finally, Yuri Prochazka against Alexander Rakic in what looks to be a #1 contender fight, I got Prochazka by knockout. All that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments. This fight card is going to be insane, so go ahead and take work off, finish your homework, do what you gotta do to watch these fights this weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.